welcome to another episode of Sawdust Nation Podcast, episode 192. We have a special guest with us today, and we're going to be going down his journey and how he got to where he is today. But first, speaking is Josh from North Country Woodworking.
This is Tim from Gears and Fire.
And this is Scott from Salty Robin Uncut.
And there you
Welcome,
go.
Scott.
Special guest, Scott. Hey, man. Well, I feel like I've known you for a long time in the whole social media. We've been going back and forth for a couple of years at least. But you know what? For those that don't know, how did your journey start? What's behind the name? What's going on in the shop?
What would you say you do here?
So the name's pretty simple. My wife's last name is Salter, so she is the salty one.
Okay.
My last name is Robinson, so Robin is the name. So we sort of merged the Salty Robin, and she definitely is the salty one of the whole show. I don't know. It started with Pinterest. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like maybe some other wives have asked their husbands in the past. Like,
here, honey, I saw this. Can you make this?
Yeah, can you make this? And I think I started with one of those word love shelves or something with the
sure,
basic hand
word art.
Yeah.
Got it.
So and I'm like, I've always been keen to building and stuff like that. So it was, I did that, and then she's like, oh, there was a crate phase going on. Everybody wanted to build a crate, build this, so we build a crates. Then you build crate furniture, and then we had friends, and then they started, we want to buy some of these. And next thing I know, I'm building hundreds and hundreds of crates, and I'm like, oh, this is getting boring. But then she learned how to do stuff, so it became part of things she was doing. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, okay, well, I can save some money and buy some tools.
That's fantastic. And because she's involved, she approves everything, right?
Oh, totally. So
fantastic.
Which then leads to, we get busy, and she was a hairdresser by trade, and we got so busy that she quit her job. So, and then I was working two jobs and, work weekends plus that nights and stuff like that. So she caught on really quick on how to do a lot of the shop stuff. Like, she runs saws more than I do now. And so she flies at her, and she quit her job about 8 years ago, and we run a full-time business up until just around COVID. Lumber prices up here just went through the roof like everywhere else. And we realized, like, buying, normal 2x4 was like $11 for a 2x4, and it was getting unrealistic.
I remember that.
It was getting unrealistic for me to turn to a customer, because we wanted to be blue collar when we did builds, and sell to like the normal guy or the normal girl, not just high end or something like that. We wanted to keep it affordable, and so we did some number crunching, and we had some friends in that we're doing some other stuff more with hardwoods and stuff, and charcuterie boards and crib boards and things like that. So in mid 2020, we transitioned away. I think I did my last build was for her parents. I built like a TV stand flat / fireplace thing, and that was my last furniture build. And then we transitioned over to charcuterie boards and crib boards and markets, more markets, because you couldn't do markets with furniture. It's too hard to pack. Like dining room table, you're not just packing it up and taking it to a market.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that the market around here was starting to get all saturated. Everybody, the farmhouse furniture was trending. I mean, our town's only about 25,000 people, so you can only sell so many. And so we started to trend a little bit differently. And it just kind of took off a little bit. And she can put, a charcuterie board or a crib board, like one of her crib boards is just basically shove it into an envelope, and she can ship it wherever she wants. So
that's awesome.
That's
so great.
We went that direction, and that's for the last 3 years, and done markets. And I think we're going to scale back a little bit, not a ton this year, but she's kind of looking at going back to work a little bit. I just changed jobs too, so that was kind of I was working for Xerox for 14 years, and now I'm running a service department for Subaru. So it's kind of a complete change a bit, but I don't want to work as hard anymore. I'm getting a little bit older, and I kind of want to do some things that are, maybe I like doing one-offs. I really like one-offs, like where you do something, you take your mind and you throw it into a design, or you work with it. Repetitiveness for me is just, I can't. I can only build, like, I never want to build another crate in my life ever. Like, she doesn't.
At some point, Scott, you have to automate it. That's all I'm saying.
It just, there's only so much, like, you can, once your brain gets dumb, like, it just it's pounding the same nail 32 times. It just, so yeah, that's sort of the trend. And she's the artist, like, for the, I mean, I do some stuff. I try and do the one-off things, but she's the wave specialist. Like, she makes epoxy look like a wave. I'm like, I watch what she does. I've tried. It's not as good.
That's cool, man. So do you sell like only at markets, or do you sell on Etsy, anywhere else online?
So far, like, she's just basically stuck with Instagram and Facebook. This year she's going to try and go into more of a build her own web page this year, and then we'll brand off that way. And we've looked at, like, the Etsy and the Shopify and stuff like that. By the time you get your percentages and stuff away, because we don't price really. That's the other thing. We try and keep as lower as we can, just because we want to keep it affordable for people. I mean, I laugh to this day, because what I sell something for, I still don't believe I actually sell it for. The amount of money that somebody will send me, like, just out of the blue, somebody will send me, and they'll be like we got an order, what was it, last month, and it's for like 22, like, the big boards I do, they're 12 by 18. I had one in a mold, but it's gone. And we did it for a company that's it's a mining company here. We'll put their logo and stuff on them, and I'm charging them like $220 for a crib board, and they're big boards and stuff.
Yeah.
But for them just to pull out their MasterCard and swipe it and just say, here's $4,000, have a great day, and I'm like, whoa, like, thanks.
Yeah. Like, finding your own worth, that has always been a challenge, especially for myself. I remember last week, Keith from Blackthorn Concepts was telling me that I really need to upcharge the stuff that I make, because it is worth it. If they want to go to IKEA, then they can go to IKEA. So, yeah, Keith has been a very good proponent in that area.
I can tell.
But yeah, I mean, your boards are beautiful, man. I mean, you can absolutely increase the price on those.
You try and keep it simple, right? Like, you try and especially we're a blue collar town. Like, we're away from any major centers, so blue collar town leads to blue collar money. Which there have don't get me wrong, I'm a blue collar guy, so you only have a certain amount of money, and most of our stuff is gifts and stuff like that. So I want to be affordable for people. I'd rather sell 100 than 10. So, only 10 people can afford it, or 100 people. It's that balance, right? So you try and balance out. Maybe I lose $10 a board or something like that, but if I sell 100 of them, I'm gaining.
So you know your market,
Yeah.
you know who you're
I was
selling.
saying, and it sounds like you really got the volume, so that's pretty good. Fantastic. So, sneaking into the corner here, folks, like, I recognize this guy, but I'm not really sure who he is. Sir, could you say who you are?
Some people call me Nap. Some guys call me Fat Guy in the Maker Chat,
Napadoodle.
all the things. But no, it's me. It's Nap. Joining the chat a little late, or joining the podcast a little late. Just got done with wrestling practice with my son. I'm going to tell you right now, a room full of kids, it's like hurting kids. It's... And then when your kid, like, has, like, the mental capacity of a fish when he's watching somebody do something is, oh man. I had to stay after a little bit for pictures, and then also go over stuff with him one-on-one, because he's more of a one-on-one teaching kind of kid, not in a group of 40 children trying to pay attention to the coach who's trying to teach something.
40?
Dude, it's North Dakota it's big up here. Wrestling's big up here, which is crazy. I didn't think it would be. But anyways, but yeah, I'm here, and I wanted to make a comment real quick about knowing your worth in your projects and the one-offs and the things. I just had a conversation with someone about this like 3 hours ago, in fact. Josh, you remember the chest I made for the Chiefs way back in Texas? Mm-hmm. I way undercharged for that. I was literally just talking about how this person wants a chest as a centerpiece, and I was like, yeah, I barely made anything the last one I made. I'm going to charge appropriately this time because, well, I know what I'm making and I know what it takes. So I hope this person knows that they're getting a full hardwood chest and not something from IKEA when I eventually give them their invoice. Now, mind you, it's a Chief, and I'm pretty sure they're not strapped for cash. And as you said, someone swiping the card for $4,000 like it's nothing. That's great. I love that feeling. When it's like, oh, yeah, that's it? All right, that's it. I'll double it. I mean.
Well, there's some fees I forgot to tell you about.
But no, I agree with you as far as, making 100 rather than making 10. Just sometimes, at least in, we'll call it the one-off market or making like specialty items, I tend to go higher because I don't want to make it again if I don't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I get rid of products I don't want to do is I charge higher than I want than really I would charge normally.
We call that the FU price.
Kind of, yeah. But I'm not really trying to say that. It's like
but then they say yes.
I don't want to make this. So this is how much it's going to be. Oh, okay, cool. Like it's like you're like, all right, you got me.
Come on,
you got me. All right, I guess I'm making it.
I did a round dining table. It's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I really didn't want to do it. He wanted like a glass inlay and stuff like that. And in my brain, I'm like, I could do it, but in my head, I'm like, I just don't want to. And I threw this obscene number at him. Like I charged him $4,500 for this table, and I'm like, there's no way, whatever. And then he wanted like some coffee serving station and some other stuff. So by the time I was done, it was like $8,500, and I didn't hear from the guy for a week. He worked for Edward Jones, an investing company, and he wanted it as his like boardroom. And I think it was like a 7-foot round table. It was big, and big truss base and stuff like that. Literally, he just said, "What do you want for a credit card?" And I'm like, "Oh
fuck." You're like, you got me.
Got approved.
Take me away.
Somebody got approved.
I'm like, oh.
It's like anything for corporate. I swear, you just have to tack on an extra zero.
Like no resin, no nothing. This was just wood, which was great because that's what we were doing. But I'm like, at the end of it, I'm like, oh, I really got to do this thing now. And it took me about 3 weeks, and with like, solid oak 4x4s, and the table was done in maple, and I struggled, like even just trying to cut it out properly. Like every little minuscule thing I had to do, I was like mentally stuck in my head, and I'm like, am I going to screw this up? Not. And it turned out great. It did. But
that's awesome.
I'm like, at the end of it, I'm like, that was just the job. You just wanted to turn away. But then he throws big money at you, and you're like, oh.
So now this is under your belt. The guy comes back at you next week, says, hey, I need another one. Exact same thing. Are you going to do it?
I'm retired.
And how much are you increasing the price?
Yeah, I'm now officially retired.
I'm retired from that, sir. I don't do that kind of work anymore.
Which is what we did in 2020. I still get it. I get random orders for people that want coffee tables, end tables, dining room tables, whatever. And I'm just, I wanted my weekends back a little bit. I wanted my back to feel better, not swinging lumber around all day long, and then
yeah.
I like doing this for my enjoyment and fun. Like that's why I got into it. And it just became a second job. And my wife does it because that's her job now. But I wanted to still do fun stuff and just buy cool tools and, do that. And so now I'm just happy. I'm just like, yeah, I'll just watch what Tessa does and I help her out. And I do some creative stuff and I post that. But it's, for the most part, it's 90% her now. I'm just right. I'm along for the ride, and I do way more social media than she does. She laughs at me. She's like, "You just don't care about what you post." I'm like, "No, not really." I'm like,
sweetheart, I'm not chasing sponsors. What do you want from me?
Yeah, I'm an older, gray-haired guy that doesn't show my face a ton, and I enjoy what I do, and I'm like, oh, I think this is cool or this is cool. So I got stuck in that rabbit hole of, you got to post every day, and you got to do this and you got to do that. Now I'm like, I just throw my dog up there, I throw food up there, I throw woodworking up there. I just whatever, because it's me. That's what this page was supposed to be, was me. Her page is, she wants materialist pictures, stuff like that. I'm like, that's
So how much of her content do you put on your page?
none. She she'll take finished photos and stuff like that. I'll do, like, if she's like blowing waves and making waves or something, I'll do a video because she wants me to video that, and I might share some of that. But for the most part, I put on what I do, and that's it. Because she yells at me if I steal stuff, so I just say no, you. But she doesn't want to videotape anything, so I've got to kind of. She gets mad at me if I post something that's not supposed to be posted early or something. But that's supposed to be a gift, or that's not supposed to be shown until it's done. I'm like, whatever, nobody will know. And then I laugh. I'm like, nobody will see any of this. And I think I did a Saskatchewan Rough Riders crib board or something like that, and I posted it. And sure enough, somebody called me out on it. They're like, oh, I think that's my gift. I'm like, oh shit.
Do me a favor. Don't tell her you saw this. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was creeping through your projects, man. Like, you have some absolutely beautiful work. One piece that stood out to me was that the Star Wars, the Darth Vader board.
Yeah,
that was really cool. Like the picture, like
awesome.
I as I understand it, like you print off like a high res picture, you put it in there, epoxy over the top. Is that kind of the gist of that?
Yeah. So I just buy just vinyl, like laser vinyl, so I can laser whatever image I want. We're going to start doing a little bit more of it. I kind of got away. It was more of a test. That one, the epoxy I used was like I used like a 3 to 5 day epoxy, and I think next time Eco Epoxy makes a new SPR. It cures in about a day. I'll go with that because it'll cure faster. Because actually, if you really look closely on it, it kind of gets a little blurry. It's because the epoxy, after a while on the laser image, it started to pull some of the toner a little bit. Where I've tried it again on with Eco Epoxy's like 1 day stuff, and it doesn't touch it. Even if you went, I think, to the fast stuff like the tabletop, it would hold the image better. But yeah, it turns out.
Eco Epoxy, you said?
Yeah. No, it's up in Canada. So yeah, that's what we use. Tessa took everything out of it. This is her office, and I have nothing in it. So, but yeah, Eco Epoxy was what we've kind of switched to. The clarity's good. The UV is awesome. I haven't had anything yellow yet in the last 3.5 years, which is pretty good. And the company's really good. They're easy to deal with, and I can get it at my local supplier in town here. And they've basically sell it to me at cost because I promo everything. So they just, I think I get it for like, I think it's like $130 for a kit for a 4-liter kit, or $180 for a 6-liter kit. So up in Canada,
that's fantastic.
That's pretty good up here. Like it retails for like $250 and like $180 or something like that. So, but we're good with them. Same with we have a couple other mold companies we're kind of working with a bit now. They sent me some free stuff. Empire Molds. They're awesome to deal with. So it's anything to make your life easy. I'm also getting tired of making molds. I've destroyed some molds in the last couple of days, and I'm like, I'm going to rebuild them.
I was going to say the Tyvek tape and all that stuff. Like, I'm not about that.
Like I have tons of them, like literally tons made, but it's like you can only like do so much with these until you're like lose your mind.
Yeah. And
the MDF and the all the wood, it just breaks apart all the time. So I kind of want to get something solid, but the problem is I've asked some mold companies to make specific things, especially crib board sizes, and they won't, because by the time they want to build something for me, it probably costs about eight to 10 grand. So
something you should consider, and maybe you already have, If you've seen Jake Thompson from Saturday Morning Cartoons, so he makes his own silicone molds. All it requires is a CNC, and you will do the stupid Tyvek type thing at least a couple more times, right? But you can make a silicone crib board, and they work just the same. Make it a little bit bigger so you can dimension them the way you want, and then, there you have it. And you make it yourself. I mean, it'll cost you a little bit up front, but those molds last forever. Yeah. Unless, of course, you cut it by accident. Then you're screwed. But that's something to consider maybe, because I've seen people make the molds like you do, and I was like, yeah, that's cool and everything, but if you want to do repetition, you don't want to have to keep remaking your molds over and over and over. So something to consider.
Yeah, and like with me, I kind of got it down to science now, where I rip a mold apart, rebuild the mold right then. So because I silicone right away, and then it dries, so about a day later I can re-pour again. But like for cost, yeah, you're right. I'm getting tired of it. If I was building tables, custom tables or something, you're including that into your cost. But in my case, where you're building, 12 by 18, usually.
So in your case, it makes sense to do silicone mold just because you are making such a higher volume. And I always said they're smaller too, so you can always set them on a flat surface. They'll always be flat.
I always hate cutting away wood, so I tell Dessa, she'll tell me, well, I need a crib board this wide, so we'll go buy wood or something like that. And we buy some nice, 7 or 8 inch walnut, and she's like, well, I only need it 5 inches wide. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to cut it. Can we just make
That's a lot of waste. Wow.
Can we just,
unless you can repurpose the offcut somehow, some creative way.
So I'm looking
I'm
actually looking at a 12 by 18 mold now by 2 inches tall. It's already made. It's $50 cost for one mold. And that's not how much they paid to make that either. That maybe cost them $25, $30 to make it.
So how complicated is it to make a silicone mold?
It's not. So okay, and I've never made one. I say this like I've made them. I've not. Okay. But when you watch Jake, now Jake's a very good show and tell type of guy. So when he goes through and shows how he makes his stuff, it's not hard at all. He literally either you build a mold or you CNC a mold. Like if you want a specific shape or something, you'll do all the programming, whatever you got to do. You CNC it and then you pour it. The hardest part, I think, is just making sure you pour a solid mold and don't have air pockets and stuff. I think it's probably the hard part, kind of like I'm just doing epoxy.
So I always thought like silicone molds you had to pull a vacuum on to get the air bubbles out.
No. That's the beautiful thing about this stuff. And then in a day, like you said, your silicone, when you do your edges and stuff,
chemicals.
It's the same. Like a day cures, and then you have a nice silicone mold to use over and over and over.
That'll be the first time I tell my wife I get to play with silicone. It's fun.
So here's a question. I also make cribbage boards, and I hate waiting for the machine to drill a crap ton of holes. Like, can I make a silicone mold with all the pegs, which would be holes later on? How do they come out?
I wouldn't do that. And here's why. Because you'll have inconsistencies. You'll have the glue brush effect, I'll call it. When you have a glue brush, it dries, you go to pull it, and some of the bristles break off. That'll end up happening.
Yeah.
But do you do a drill mill, or do you do just a regular end mill?
Drill mill. So I have just an 1/8 inch drill bit, and it goes only a 1/2 inch down at a time. It's all the depth that I need for a cribbage board. Every time I do a cribbage board now, I'm increasing the speed, so it's getting a lot faster now. But still, in an ideal world, I would have a gang drill setup where it just drills 10 at a time.
Yeah, that's real production.
I don't know. Haven't. Yeah, I'm working up to that. See, I have goals.
I won't tell Tessa that because she hand drills all the holes.
Oh, that breaks my heart. Oh my gosh.
She does.
Ooh, I gotta see.
That's a lot of holes to do by hand, man.
That actually hurts my soul, and it hurts me a little bit to hear that.
It hurts my shoulder thinking about that because I'm assuming it's a lot of this.
Got a pair of guns on the
Yeah,
she's
drilling guns.
Rockler makes a cool little template for doing cribbage boards and stuff like that. It's got its own centering bit and stuff like that. It works great. It does. And so we bought it thinking, well, we're going to do one or a couple crib boards. And I think I've now bought like 10 Rockler templates because she burns out the bit before anything.
So you guys do not have a CNC? So here's a fun exercise. Calculate all the cribbage boards that you've ever done. Calculate all the holes in just one cribbage board and say, sweetheart, this is why we need a CNC.
Here's the funny thing about this, right? So I know we're not trying to sell a CNC to you, but my dad had this idea. Yeah, right. Now, so we talk about batching things, and now you're talking about how, you've got a 12 by 18. You make, instead of 12 by 18, you do 24 by 36 or so. You do a longer piece and you cut it, but then you can literally take a CNC and do 2 at a time. And you don't even need you don't even need a larger CNC for that. You could get the 2x4 and it'd be perfectly fine.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it won't break the bank. That's the best part. Now, if you go get a 4x4, it might hurt a little bit. But then again, sounds like you guys are fairly successful, so it shouldn't be too terrible.
You don't have to sell me at all. It's been kind of because I just want to play with it.
It's a new tool. I want to play.
But we had some things come up in the last couple of years that money went into other places and stuff. And when I go to buy one, I want to spend money on something cool. Like I want to actually spend good quality money to buy one. Even though it'll be kind of an entry level for us, but I still want to have something that I can grow into. So we have that fundage that's putting away. And with me starting this new job, it's going to increase that. And then, so in the near future, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll buy a CNC. And in the meantime, she's handling. So, but it's coming. It's like, even when we bought the laser, like even the first laser we bought, it was like, I thought, okay, I could just engrave a couple things just to be cool. I didn't want to cut anything out. I just wanted to do because I'm like,
so
I don't want to cut.
Seeing the shadow in the background, I'll do this favor for you. Buying a CNC is a good return on investment.
She's like, you're talking about what now?
Well, she knows, and she even for the time saving, and she gets tired too. Like when she has to she'll drill 10 or 15 crib boards in a day, and we do. The worst is we sell 3-player crib boards, so it's like that extra run.
120 times 3.
Are cribbage boards really that
360 holes.
I think when COVID hit and it became that grandmother taught you how to play crib, and everybody was stuck at home for so long, and especially up here, it just took off. And then people didn't want the cheap little bicycle crib boards anymore. They wanted something that was like
legit.
They could have and sit, like stuff we make. You can leave on your coffee table, and it's like a decor piece.
Mm-hmm.
So it's instead of something you shove away. I mean, we're working on some new things this year, some other games and that she wants to do. There's a cool little baseball dice game that I want to do.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. So
just simple things, but you got to kind of change it a little bit. She started doing like dishes and little coasters and stuff, because when we went to markets at first, we were like, okay, well, here's 80. We were in that $80 to $130 range at markets. Well, we found that when you're doing markets, not everybody has 80 or 130 bucks in their pocket, but lots of people have $20 in their pocket. And then you start doing like, the beer coast or, bottle openers and stuff like that. And so we started doing little things like that. Like even the coasters, like her like these coasters and that, she sells a set of these for like $30. So
that's beautiful. Yeah.
But
when you say people don't have $80 or $100 in the pocket, they do, and it's all in 20s.
Yeah.
They just don't want to spend all of their 20s all at once.
It's a lot easier to have people part, I think, with that $20 right away. Which, she did like ring dishes and stuff like that. It was an easy like $10, $15 thing. So, and then I did soap dishes this year. I had scraps of walnut, just tons of cutoffs, and I just made some soap dishes, and they all sold. Like you go to a thing, we had another girl that came to the markets with us that sold soap and stuff, and we took her soap, put it on our dish, and we just, these are cool. So yeah, I had to use up my wallet. I can't throw walnut away. I can throw
I know somebody that burns it.
Oh, I can't. It hurts. And we're at like $17 a board foot here,
Dude,
so
I'm right there with you.
Oh,
Hey, real quick. Wait, so you're based out of where now, as far as like where you live? In Canada?
I'm in British Columbia.
Okay, so I'm south of you, I'm pretty sure, North Dakota, and it's $19 here.
Wow.
oh my
American,
gosh!
American too.
Now, mind you, I found a guy, and he goes to Minnesota. He goes to Minnesota and he picks up a lot of it, and he sells it for like $9 a board foot. And I was like, I will deal with the couple wormholes. I will avoid those. I was like, I won't pay for that piece though, because there's like a foot of it I can't use. He's like, I'll just take it off. I'm like, sick. I can make that piece that I can't really use into something else later.
And
That's awesome.
And when we go looking too, we go looking for crappy walnut.
Yeah.
So, like for what we want, like the coolest looking weird or holes or something like that, I can pour resin in that. I'm not worried. So
Sure.
I'll wheel and deal. There's a place up in Calgary. It's called Wood Cache. They sell some wicked wood.
It sounds awesome.
Wood, great deals and stuff like that. So we'll drive up to Calgary, but it's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive. So we'll go up there and, pick up. That's when we pick up like a lot of wood. So I'll drop like.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
do you stick to like just like maple, walnut, ash, stuff like that, or do you ever go into like the more exotic hardwoods?
Oh no,
anything like that?
If I see some cool wood, I'll buy it. Like my, I think one of my favorite woods is bloodwood.
Bloodwood is the shit.
I love bloodwood. Paduke is cool, but bloodwood is really cool.
Well, the problem with Paduke is it stains more than a bloodwood. Bloodwood does too. However, Paduke is a menace when you're using it with maple.
But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like we use Sapel.
Sapel, yeah.
Wange. I don't know how
okay. I don't like Wenge for one reason. I had a piece of it stuck in my hand for weeks and couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty.
It'll burn your finger while it's stinging.
Yes.
But we use.
I went to a woodworking show this past weekend and I bought a piece of leopard wood. Board of leopard wood. I'd never seen it before. I'd never touched it. I picked it up and like this thing is beautiful. I mean, this one board, we'll call it like 2 feet long by 6 inches wide, 1 inch, whatever. It was like $22. I'm like, you know what? I have no idea what I'm going to make with this, but this thing looks cool. And this whole place, they had like all the exotics, Wenge, they had bloodwood there too. I had a piece of bloodwood in my hand. Like I thought maybe I could use this for my cutting boards. Because like all my cutting boards are all end grain, and I really like the way bloodwood contrasts with the other colors of wood. So I thought about that. But yeah, like some of the exotics, like I want to start playing with some of those woods just because of really cool grain patterns, and that's it. Like I don't care what I make with it. I want to see what these grain patterns can do to a project.
Oh, there's was it yellow canary?
Yes.
Canary wood. I got some.
It's a gorgeous grain in there, and I was in my head. I'm like trying to think, what can I do? I've got some boxes and stuff I'm supposed to do like this year. Like people wanted. I really struggled. The only thing I really struggled, like most of the time, I can throw anything with wood, or at least try. But memorial pieces, they're tough. I struggle doing memorial pieces, and even like I have people asking me for like little pet boxes and stuff, and I'm like. I always think my work is not good enough to sit on a shelf with somebody's memorial. And
sure.
I had one of our close friends. She had me build a box for her dad's ashes. It took me a month and a half to do it. I struggled. I told my wife 9,000 times, I never want to do this again. Don't ever ask me. And when it all of a sudden was done, I think it turned out good. I saw the flaws, but that's because it was me.
You always will.
I did box joints on it because I didn't want to do. I wanted to keep it simple. And the guy that we built it for, he was a simple kind of guy, a logger, and we did this memorial piece, and I gave it to them, and they loved it. But I just looked at Tessa and please don't ask me to do that again. I struggled because I'm like, I never could think my stuff would be good enough to put somebody's, ashes into something. I'm like, no. So But I've got another project that I said I would do, but it's for a pet, so it's a little easier to choke down. But I've got some canary wood that I'm going to try and do with it because I just think it's got some cool grain.
But you know what makes it good enough, though, is the fact that you care enough to think that your stuff's not good enough. That's how you know that your work is good enough. Now, if you're...
That's why I'd hire you.
Yeah. Like, if you're some Joe Schmo that's like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff wrong with this, but whatever, you know, they're not going to notice. Like, that's a problem. Now, mind you, there are things that I've done where I look at a piece, I go, I really don't like that. But I also don't want to rebuild this entire project because that's going to really hurt my feelings. So I'll find a way to make it look nice and you will never notice it, but it's something I'm okay with giving away. It'll never be there's a chunk of that missing. Let me just go ahead and throw a piece of Bondo or something on there real quick, you know, and call it a day.
Don't be that guy.
I'm going to find a way to, as Ben would call it, make it a feature, but a feature that's easy on the eyes. You know, you can look at it and be like, oh, that's awesome. Not, why is there a gap the size of a Grand Canyon in that box joint right now? I don't like that. What's happening here? You know? So, now there's a difference between, oh, I don't care, and you know, they won't see it. And then there's the other side of it of, I see that. They probably won't notice, but I see it, and it's there, and it bothers me.
Yeah.
There's only so much sawdust and wood glue can accomplish.
Yeah. Me and miters. I hate miters.
That's why when CA glue started coming around, Starbond and stuff, I'm like, oh, thank God, because there's so many little imperfections that I'm like, I can't handle the hole. I just need it filled. And you know, wood glue and sawdust is great, but when you stain it or that, you still see that.
You know, you know, it's really good to do if you're trying to stain. I found Scott is, and you might have already seen this trick. I take Minwax, rub on poly. I put a little bit on a cloth or on a piece of sandpaper, and I sand over the hole with it, and it makes like a sludge and fills in the holes. And when you stain it, you'll never notice.
Huh.
Yep.
That's a cool
I've done that on box joints. I've done that on miters that I had like the smallest gap on. I'll do it. If it's like, I'm not talking like a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch. I'm talking like a 16th and less than that. Okay. Do that and you won't notice.
1/8 inch gap, 1/4 inch gap.
Yeah, try again.
That'll buff right up.
But listen,
that'll buff right
I've seen people do some crazier stuff, man. They'll be like, oh yeah, we'll just fill that in. And you can definitely tell they filled it in. But then you get like a hairline or
I have such
30-second and you go ahead and do that. You typically won't notice, especially in like walnut and oak. But cherry is a little harder to deal with. I never had a lot of luck with cherry.
Yeah,
it's very inconsistent.
Cherry is beautiful.
It is, but it's inconsistent in color.
Cherry and hickory burn so badly when I'll work with it, but I'd rather not. Like the burn part.
It all depends on the speeds you use. Like if you're using bits and stuff like that. I love cherry. I work with it almost every project I can because it's cheaper. It's mid-price wood. It's good hardwood. And like, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it. It's like my generation's oak.
Don't say that.
It's just the way I equate it.
Don't fucking ever say that again. You can cut that.
It is absolutely. You know that.
Kids.
You know as well as I do.
I'm about to make a...
but talking about like miters and filling the gaps, I just picked up the whole 45-degree lock miter router bits, the 3-piece set off Amazon. It was like, $33. And that's going to be, I'm going to try that, give that a go. Because, I've been getting increasingly better at miters and stuff like that. My gaps aren't big at all. But like something that actually locks into place, that's what I'm favoring right now.
The only time I've ever used cherry is just to make an end grain plug for one or two of my boards. So I've never had to use face grain for cherry for anything.
Really? Well, we make a lot of plaques and stuff like that too. And like cherry burns really good with laser and holds boxy pretty well. But I mean, I personally use it a lot. I know Nap uses it a lot.
Whoa, hello, right now, easy phrasing. This is one of those times that I use that trick. The trick I was talking about, you can only tell because it's two different grains, but it's filled in by a little bit. This is me using miters to make boxes. I hate miters. I hate them. Burning passion.
because like they're either really
Dude,
perfect
it's-
or they're way off one way or the other.
Dude,
I swear to God, every
Yeah,
time.
and then on these ones, I had to use the steel bar trick because it was just a little bit separated. So I used a steel bar to rub it closed. I was like, I only remembered that because I was like, I only needed to like just a little bit. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing this guy use a freaking Phillips head screwdriver and mash it together. That's what I'm doing. And then I sanded it, and now it looks great. You know, and this is a tea box, by the way, tea box holder or tea bag holder.
Sure.
That's by far better than my tea box I made.
What's that?
My last tea box.
I like your tea
It was
box.
okay. It
No.
was like my first try at box joints, I think, at the time. So it was like,
But that was meant for containers. Like you have actual containers of tea. This is just for the bags themselves.
Yeah.
I would have much rather had yours. Cause like, oh, I want this freaking tin. I got the tin. Okay, grab my tea bag, put the tin back.
See, mine sits right on top of the like on our kitchen thing, so she can just grab her tea.
Yeah.
It's just different more than anything.
It was built functionally for you guys, so it's a great tea
And
box holder.
I'm surprised she hasn't painted it or stained it at least 3 times since I built it. So it's in the meantime, it's like still the same color.
So real quick, speaking of, so something on this. So I've learned a couple things. So I've been making boxes, not necessarily like tea boxes like this one. This just happens to be the one I'm working on now. So you know how you got to make like the dividers and the slots, and typically you don't account for the fact that if you go all the way through and you cut the top off, you're going to have the spots that are open, voids. So I ended up taking the the CA trick, and I put them in there, and then I sanded over it, and then I got to still fill the gaps on this one. I still saw that. But I got to sand it. But I ended up having to take pieces of wood and sticking them in. And then I don't think I'd ever thought I'd use a Japanese pull saw to do all that stuff. So I see people on Instagram do it. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to try it. See what happens. Threw it in there, did the thing, cut it, sand it, CA glue. The CA glue trick is, with the sanding, is really, really good for something you want fast. Like you want it done quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, learning a lot of stuff with the hand tool piece. For some reason, I think Instagram has been hearing me talk about chisels in the house a lot because I've been talking to the wife about getting a nice set of chisels. Because I've been seeing a lot of chisel work. People doing like the 45 degree with the chisel, doing it by hand. I'm like, I need to learn how to do that. Do it by hand, make it look pretty, have a little more pride in the work other than, let me use this machine to do this. Machine messed it up. Now I got to start over. Stuff.
Well, it depends on what level of chisel you want to use too. I mean, there's paint can chisel, there's mortise and tenon chisel, and then there's like some fine, like you said, 45 degree perfect angled chisel.
Yeah, I think these dudes could achieve anything with any type of chisel. Watching this dude do like a paper thin shaving, and it didn't break, I was just like, that's just, it's beautiful. Like, how are you doing that?
That is what you call woodworker porn.
Sorcery is what that is.
Like those,
Clearly, they don't have any paint cans in their shop.
Clearly.
you see those?
I'm looking for what the device is called, but it is just a blade in it. It comes to an angle of 45, and it's like, I don't know if you pull it. I think it's like a large blade you just pull down, and it cuts like the remaining of the wood just enough so it's a perfect 45. I've seen it in a couple stories. I looked it up in the past.
But it's basically, it sounds like an arbor press with a chisel attached.
It kind of is in a way, and I know there's a name for it. I just can't find it.
All I know is, Scott, you got away from making furniture, brother. I actually do want to make some furniture, not a lot. Okay, listen, I'm gonna make things for me. Okay, for my house. But my thing is I want to actually learn how to do this stuff, but I want to be hybrid about it. I don't necessarily want to do everything by hand because I don't have the patience. I want to learn how to design it in CAD, kind of like Tim knows how to do, and then be able to put that into application, and then turn things on my rotary CNC. Make some table legs with that, whether they be crazy looking or just the typical ornamental legs, and then what Josh. I thought you raised your hand.
Oh, I found it. I was going to wait
till
you.
But yeah, I want to be able to I want to take everything that I've learned thus far. This will probably be when I retire because I ain't got time for it. And I do have news for you boys as well at the end of the podcast. I'm not going to Louisiana. I mean, anyways, so I'm staying in North Dakota.
What?
We'll talk more later.
God damn it.
We're so close,
I mean-
Josh. Dang it.
I know.
I mean, listen, I don't gotta come back. It's fine. I mean, there's no sweat off my back.
Would not
It's a joke,
be the
dude.
same without you, Nap. Just saying.
Um,
But you know what? While you're here, we're going to
just-
give you
this
some
is just
absolute
funny.
shit.
Yeah, I know. But no, I want to learn how to do all these things with like the hand tools and be able to use the CNC, the rotary, all this stuff. I don't know. I think it's just something to say when you can use everything you've learned to make something.
We've got there's a guy
Yeah.
there's a guy up here. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. It's Dusty Lumber Company.
Hey, I've
He
heard of
lives,
that one.
Yeah.
about 3 hours away from me, and he has some of the coolest tools for building like frame furniture or frame, like just some of the king tools that he has that they just send to him, and he's got like oh, it's just,
I
I just
drool.
want to
I
just want to hang out in a shop
Yeah.
for like a couple hours and just play. that'd be the best part. But yeah, for cutting like castles and stuff like that for making furniture, you do that by hand. Where he's got stuff that you set it up and it just cuts it for you, and you're like, oh, this is fast, and simple. His fruit or Freud or whatever however you say it, his bits and that he uses for cutting out all his tenons, and then I'm like, wow, they're like an inch thick, and he's throwing these on. I'm like, there's some.
So I'm not saying it's cheating, but a bit that cuts out your tenon. It's almost like a dovetail jig. You know what I mean? Like, it's not cheating, but
oh, you mean it's more efficient? I think is the word you're looking for. It's more efficient.
yeah, exactly. It's like CNC versus doing it by hand. I get it. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I want my first dovetail to be done by hand so I can appreciate the dovetail jig when I inevitably go towards that.
Yeah,
Dude,
I'm like, I don't want the mistakes.
$230 for a freaking perfect 45? Take my money.
Yeah.
I don't know. Years ago, before I started Gears and Fire, any of this stuff, I had been watching the Samurai Carpenter. I don't know if you've ever watched his stuff. He's a guy actually up in kind of close to your neck of the woods, Scott. Beautiful, like miter joint, hand cut furniture, stuff like that. And it was when I first saw him do like all these awesome dovetails by hand. To like, you know what? That's what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to do woodworking on some level, but that's what I'm chasing. It blew my mind.
I grew up literally. It was actually right next door to where I built my house now, and there was an older guy there. And he had this little woodworking shop in his back. And I think I was probably about 6 or 7, and I walked over there, and he says, "Oh, come do this with me." And he had a round, I think it was probably like maple, I think, at the time. And he's like, "Oh, let's start carving." So he starts carving and showing me these chisels, and I'm just watching because I'm just a kid, right? And within about 40 minutes, he sort of carved out a bottle, like an old Pepsi-looking bottle. Then he started carving out the center. And he carved out a perfectly round circle in the center that you like. So there's this little ball inside of a little Pepsi like wood shaped Coca-Cola bottle with a little ball. And then he gets out a little wood burner and he, writes the word Coca-Cola on it, and he hands it to me. He says, "Here, take this home." So that just fascinated me that he just made this by hand, just tooled it, right in front of me. And he sold them, but he was like an old retired guy, and he did everything by hand. There was no tools. It was just chisel things out. He made this perfectly little round ball inside. And I'm like, wow. And I was like 5. So I was kind of, he passed away, I think, by the time I was 10. So I couldn't gain any real knowledge, but,
right. But he gave you that spark, and that's awesome.
It stirred the cranium a little bit, and it kind of kept me, I want to build things with hands. I've always built things with my hands. So kind of went that way. Like, I built this house. Like I was the general contractor for this. This was my first house that I built, and it's still the house I live in. But, we built it, and now I look back and go, man, I wish I would have done this. But
right.
Hey, but you can build yourself a standalone shop, right? Or do you already have one of those?
No, it's a detached shop. We don't have enough land for me to build another shop. That's the next house.
like basically a giant garage with a house attached. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's just my wife loves the dust in the house, so she's constantly cleaning. And we have dust collection, but it doesn't matter; it still gets in the house.
Yeah,
It's a never
He's got her own.
You could hermetically seal your house off from the garage, and it will still get in there.
And she's got a resin room too, so she's got her own room separate from.
That's cool.
Like she has more toolboxes than I do. Like she has four Husky, like the I think they're 48-inch or 50-inch toolboxes, the Husky ones.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we went down to Home Depot. We bought one, and then she's like, "Well, maybe I need another one." And she's like, "Well, I could use a third one." And I'm like, "Okay."
Oh my gosh!
So I'm looking at the big gray one that's sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, it's got a little back stand." I'm like, "Well, I could actually put my tools in that one." And so we bought that one, and I think I have like 4 drawers. She takes it. I'd like to say it's our shop. It's really her shop, because if I misplace something in there, I get in trouble for it. So it's like she cleans it up. And she's pretty awesome that way until I make a mess. And then she's like, "Oh,
that sounds great. That's like the most ideal situation. I go in there.
It's like every guy listening to this podcast right now is drooling.
I'll make a mess, and then it's clean when I come back. Yes."
Well, I still got to deal with the fact that I made it dirty. So
this episode is going to be called the Magic.
I like it. No, that's super cool though. I can tell you when I retire. So when I actually retire, I kind of want to be in somewhat the same situation. I'm definitely going to limit myself to shadow boxes and like maybe small signage, things like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm about to make a trunk, and I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm only making it because I like this Chief and cool, but I don't want to make it because
Is it just because it's big and elaborate?
No, honestly, guys, you're going to think I'm really freaking stupid for this. I don't want to deal with the damn 45-degree angles on the freaking corners, because here's what's going to happen. Okay. Everything's going to be planned out. I'm going to have it all cut. Pieces are going to be perfectly shaped, all the stuff. I'm going to go do these 45-degree angles, and they're going to be jacked. And I'm going to be pissed. And I'm just going to want to take a sledgehammer to it. That's literally every job I've done with a 45-degree angle. It'll be off by the little bit, and I'm like, you were perfectly 45. How are you not perfectly joined together? Please explain. The
wood moves. That's why.
The wood did not move in the 60 seconds it took me to cut that. There's no way.
You ever cut something on the table saw and go?
That's lateral movement. I expect that. If my table saw starts to bind, I already know I got a screwed piece of wood, and that goes in the burn pile. I go grab another piece.
How are you cutting your 45s though?
So currently, the only way I can is on the table saw, and because I do long way 45s, it's not just like framing 45s. The framing 45s, I don't have an issue with because I use my incrementer gauge for that, and I tune it in, and it's fine. But when I start doing like the box 45s to get it to where it's perfect 90s, so when it all fits together into a box, I don't get any major disparities on when I cut like a chamfer or a round over. It kind of just seamlessly goes together, and it's even. I've had a couple times where I've made stuff, and you could tell based on how it was cut, like there'll be more of this piece than this piece when it joins together when you go to like cut like a round over or chamfer. I don't know. It's eluding me, and it irritates every living piss out of me every time I cut.
I had that when I started building doors at first.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same idea, right? You're building a door, and I tongue and grooved the inserts and stuff. But I did all mine on the table saw. I found it once you get it lined up and your measurements and that, I always found like there was the odd time you might be the bottom part of a gap there might be a little hair here. But when you're doing it, cabinet doors, you can always fill it with something because I'm usually painting it. I really saw it, but I did like the table saw. I find is way more accurate than my miter saw.
Oh yeah,
and
of course.
My miter saw. I love my miter saw.
Miter saws just move too much.
Well,
it's too much stuff cantilevered way out there.
A lot of deflection.
Yeah,
like for doing rough stuff. My 12-inch miter saw. I'll fly through things.
Oh yeah.
Something small. I'm like, yeah, just my table saw. I found it work good.
I can get pretty good miters with my miter saw. Nothing too big, but like if I'm doing framing and stuff like that, I typically don't have much issue. But that's been a lot of training on my part too, to make sure I go down at, perfect. I don't deflect it. Because a lot of times, like I have the big Bosch miter saw, and I found when I first started, I was actually deflecting the blade when I was going down because I was pushing it and not going straight down at 45. So I've trained myself to do it pretty well. But the table saw is usually my go-to, especially with the miter gauge, and be able to do that. But like I was talking to these guys, Snap, when you left for a second, I actually bought those router bits, the 45-degree locking miter, and I'm using those for the first time when they get delivered.
Yeah, let me know, because I might buy them if they work really well for you. Because I like the locking portion of those miters because it's got more mechanical hold than just gluing a 45 together with nails and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And then Todd said something about using the router bits. Okay, so Todd, it's funny you say that because I think another listener said the same thing. I tried that. Problem, even with a fence, if you don't have even pressure going across that router bit from one, let's say the right side of the fence to the left side of the fence, if you even put enough pressure and it dips into the router cavity, you mess your 45 up. And if it's got a bearing, you have to match that fence to the bearing. And then also you have to have a big enough chamfer bit to reach the height of whatever thickness of board you're doing, which thankfully I had a large enough one to try to do 1/2-inch pieces. Just did not work out the way I wanted it to. I ended up having to use a table saw. Maybe it's just my inexperience. I don't know, maybe. But I'll get there. I'll figure it out. But I can tell you miters are a part of the finishing details that I struggle with the most and are the things that I notice the most when I do builds is 45s and joinery. That's where my issues are. It's not staining.
It sounds like you're going to do miters essentially for the entire chest, like on the side.
So I'm playing with that idea. I'm going to dial in my Incra box jig again and just get the comfortability of using it again. I also have this thing where I hate using the dado stack. That's a lot of carbide spinning really fast, and it scares the shit out of me. Yeah. So I'll be fine. I'll get over it. I'm probably going to max out my arbor, to be honest with you, and do the largest box joint I can do.
That's kind of where I was hoping you were going with this. So I've been thinking, because like I like building the chest. The one that I did, okay, I would say I like doing that. I did miter on the sides. We had this whole conversation before. But I've been thinking about going ahead and doing a jig myself where, I have, 1/2-inch, box joint, essentially a jig ready to go. So that when I get that again,
1/2-inch is probably better, to be honest with you. The least amount of cuts you make, the better, the less room for error.
Yeah, but you also want to make it look good. And I think if you get too big of a box joint, it kind of looks blocky and it looks almost.
So instead of box joints, do miters. If you got instead of box joint, use dovetail. If you got a jig, use it.
I thought about doing half lap as well. Like I've thought of a couple ways.
Yeah, that works.
Listen, guys.
Okay.
Like kind of like Scott was saying earlier, right? You do things like memorials and these things, and you don't think it's good enough. In the finish work, that the devil's in the details when it comes to things like that. So if your joints look like shit, everyone's going to notice that. No one's going to notice the amount of work you put into setting up like the shadow box that goes in it, or the engravings that you made, or the staining and finish work you did there. They're all going to notice when something's not even, or something, it just doesn't look right on the edges of the face. This is essentially going to be a coffee table. He said he wants it to be a centerpiece in his living room. So it's going to be a chest with decorated sides, all sides, not just front, left, and right. I'm trying to see if I'm going to do some leather work with it. Do like a antique type chest. He wants it stained and all these things.
There you go. Hide the corners with.
So leather. I'm hearing like a lot of options as far as detail comes along like this. You haven't figured out what you want to do yet. Is this kind of like a blank check type?
Yeah.
Deal?
We're going to discuss it more.
Wow.
I got a conversation I got to have with him to see exactly what he wants with it. Because because carvings and laser, guys, I've got that. That's not hard. That piece, that ship sailed. Whatever he wants on it, he'll get it. It's the construction of it itself that bothers me. I've built them before, but I don't want to mess something up in the middle of it. Luckily, it's just oak, and I say just oak lightly, but it's oak stained. Yeah. I have plenty of oak. It's nothing too expensive, but I still don't want to let it look like shit either. Scott, I'm sure you've had some dealings with some bigger builds you've had where you're just like,
Oh,
So
stuff can go.
a very large chest is just a very large box.
I know.
You've built boxes before, so why is the size of this one so intimidating?
It's not. It's not the intimidation fact. It's the matter of I don't want to mess anything up on it because of who it's for.
Okay. Because you actually like the game.
Yeah, I do. I made a freaking 36 by 18 chest for 2 chiefs. I'm not worried about the size of it. Hell, I used cargo straps to hold the pieces together to put it through a box jig. Okay. So I'm not worried about that. I'm tired of when I have like this grand plan and it comes together well in my brain. I see it 3D. Like if I had CAD and could use my brain to put it on a computer and design it just by downloading my brain, perfect, because I know exactly what I want it to look like. Sizing, thickness, everything. But when I go to put it in.
So
go ahead.
This goes back around to what Scott was saying, because he was mentioning about all those projects that he was doing and kind of got into his head, but they turned out good. We all do this. I do it because I've called you and you've told me the exact same thing that you've told me. We get in each other's heads or in our own heads, and we basically, because it means so much to us and we want it so perfect, we forget that we're human and that, there's going to be little mistakes. And you said it earlier, Nap, perfectly. As long as you care enough about the mistakes and you know how to make them features and not the sole eye-catching part of the piece that's a mess up, that's where the art comes in place. That's where the maker gets separated from everybody else. Everybody can go make a box in the shop. It might not be perfect, but how we separate ourselves is how we handle that pressure and how we develop, those mistakes into something that makes it look better. And I've seen Tim do it. I haven't seen any mess ups from Scott. He's perfect. Nap, I've seen you do it, but I know I've done it. And it's just one of those things that's what we do. I don't think I have a single project up there that's perfect. But I do know that in the client size, they think it's perfect. But like Scott was alluding to earlier, you always see those flaws. I have bookshelves back here I built years ago, and I can't look at them too long because I start seeing how bad they are. When I was moving them, I'm like, I should just throw these away. But it's a perfect wrap up to the episode just based on the fact that you're going to make mistakes, especially with this build. You don't want to admit it, but you will. And you're going to make it look perfect. And without the untrained eye, no one will ever notice, especially if you don't point that out.
I don't want to point it out, though. Be like, hey, see that in the corner?
Well, I expect you to do it to us.
My wife's grandmother always had a saying, a guy and a horse going 40 miles an hour and never noticed the difference. So it's like if you can just keep that mentality and maybe distract from the flaw to, wow, look at this giant cool thing over here, you can skate on by. But I mean, at the end of the night, still realize that, hey, I could have done this better, and then just keep trying to chase improvement, right? Nothing wrong with that.
True.
My dad was he's a machinist. He's a millwright by trade and stuff like that. And he asked me years ago when I started working with wood, he's like, why are you working with wood? I said, because I can make a mistake. I said, if you make a mistake as a machinist, I said, you're starting again. Because if you take away too much metal, you can't
put it back.
Yes, you can. You weld it back on, and then you machine it again.
To a degree, yes. But if I hone out a cylinder head on a small block Chevy too big, I'm ordering new pistons. So it's there is to a degree where, at least with wood is forgiving. And wood is I call woodworking is the warmth. Metalwork is the cold. From my perspective, wood has always been warm and welcoming. Metal has been cold. Not that I'm saying working with metal is not, a passion, but for my aspect of it, it's wood is welcome in your home. Everybody builds with wood. Everything in a home is built with wood. Yes, you can go buy metal, but usually you buy something that's metal that goes in your home. It's usually painted black and it's made to look stark, and that's the way metal is. I mean, you drive automobiles; most of them are made of plastic and other materials now. But my point being is, I went with the wood because if I made a boo boo, I could fix it. Where if you're working with metal, so my dad's like, okay, I get it. He's like, so you just don't want to be perfect all the time. I said, no, I'm not going to be perfect all the time. So sometimes we make mistakes.
Listen, so at a previous job, I used to make parts for giant paper machines. So a lot of it was custom metal fab, and it was making essentially metal boxes. It was woodworking, but with metal. And so whenever we had to weld something up, we send it off to the machine shop, and those guys, maybe it's third shift, maybe they've had a little too much to drink, I don't know, but they've skated off too much material. They send it back to the weld shop. We weld it. We basically build that face back up, and then we send it back, and they machine it this time the right time to the right dimension. So yeah, like actually metal can be a lot more forgiving than wood, but it just depends on what you're making and how you're making it. That's my challenge.
Well, we'll see.
I do agree,
But
in some aspects, I think once you take metal too far away, especially with my dad being a machinist, like you hone out something that's not. You're not welding a small block cylinder,
right? Yeah, there's absolutely an application for it. You're absolutely right.
He taught me how to port and polish some cylinder heads once on it was actually my engine for my Camaro, and he's like, "Oh, you got to hone these out and polish all the insides of the cylinder head, and make it all nice and smooth, so it's faster for gas and dispersion and stuff like that." So I'm honing away, and all of a sudden I notice a little black hole, and he comes and looks. He's like, "Oh,"
no."
He's like, "We need a new cylinder head." He's like, "You're honed into the passage." I'm like, "Oh." He's like,
no.
He says, "Don't worry, this wasn't your cylinder head. This was your practice run for your." I'm like, "Oh,
so coolant is not supposed to go in the cylinder."
He knew,
man.
But yeah, there's always lessons in life. I think that you learn every day, whether it's from friends, family, whoever, and I've learned that over the years. I even learn that quietly. I learn things from my wife every day. I just don't say it really loud. But she teaches me things that, different ways to look at things in life. And I've transitioned that into woodworking for sure, because, I used to rush through things because I had deadlines, and my brain works in start, finish. So if I start it, I have to finish it. I mean, you run out of time at the end of the day, but there's no in between. Now she's like, she kind of has this web that kind of gets to the same place, and it says you kind of got to look at things differently sometimes. It's okay to step back and look from this angle or look from that angle. And I've learned so much in the last 15 years from her that, hey, it's okay to, approach something differently, and it gives you a different perspective. Sometimes, most of the time, it turns
out. I preach to my kids all the time, trying to find a different perspective. I mean, I'm sure I've been rattling that off to the point where they're just getting sick of me. But I mean, you're absolutely right, Scott. Finding a different perspective will all help almost all the time. Because if you're just looking at it one way for too long, you're not seeing the solution that's right on the other side of it.
Sorry, I'm writing down some of the stuff to go in the description because it's gold.
Listen to your wife.
and I'll be all as this, boys. With that one particular project, I know it'll be fine. Oh, is she listening to you right now?
I don't know if she can hear me, but she's back there somewhere. So I'm gonna talk.
I haven't seen the shadow, so.
No, she hates the camera. Absolutely hates it. She won't go on camera. She just despises it. We even had a cable company come up and wanted to videotape her doing resin and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity." And she's like, "No." She just couldn't do it. Whatever. You can't push them into doing it. You gotta want to be on camera. Like even me, I don't care. I just don't do it that often.
Feels
just
awkward.
because, yeah, like you just get stumbled, and I'm like, I don't want to record myself 13 times saying the same thing to put something on Instagram. I'm like, that's why if I make a mistake, and even my spelling, my wife critiques me after I post something. She's like, you didn't spell that right. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. They're spelling Nazi. I love you, honey. But
Don't you have some resin to pour? Go away.
but yeah, she's good that way. She keeps me sort of here and level, and it's good. And it's especially when you want to build something. I find like when I want to just randomly grab a block of wood, cut it to a billion pieces, re-put it back together, and make something new. And she's like, "Yeah, go have fun." And then in the meantime, she's like, "Oh, here's your honey to-do list while you're done that, and I'll get you to cut this wood for me and do this wood."
There you go.
So it lets me play. That's the best part. You got to enjoy what you're doing. I mean, there's struggles. God, every one of us probably has had a struggle where you go into the shop and you get that mind block where you're like, oh, how do I do this? And then you draw I don't know whether you use a CAD or you doodle on a piece of paper, or you draw out your design and you start building it, and then you realize, oh, no, I got to change it midstream because this doesn't work or that doesn't work. That's what we do. I mean, that's the fun part, right?
We adapt.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, the rotary CNC was my block for a while. Then I figured it out. It's so cool.
Yeah, I've never cut with this machine, and so yesterday I was kind of looking, and I got to spend some more time. I got to figure out how to do it, but I've never actually cut with it. So I'm trying to figure out how to do a cut on Lightburn, because I'm like, it's the simplest thing, and I just want to cut out like these little letters, and I'll reach out later. But I'm struggling in my brain. I'm like, I can burn any image I want and do whatever. I'm like, how the hell do you cut with this thing? I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm like,
yeah, Maker Chat, hit us up. We'll help you out, man.
I want to cut out some little. We're gonna do my granddaughter's name. I'm gonna use the scroll saw for the first time ever, and I'm gonna scroll out her name, and then I think Tessa's gonna do some epoxy over top of the name, and we'll mica powder and resin the name, and then we're gonna put toy box. But I wanted to cut out the letters for toy box, so that'll be like Charlotte's toy box, and that'll be at the front. I'm trying to incorporate some more walnut into it. She's kind of like, oh, maybe a lighter wood. I'm like, no, honey.
It's necessary. It's needed.
It has to be. I'm like, I don't even care if I make the feet out of walnut. I'm like,
there will be a touch of walnut on this, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. She says no wheels right now. I'm like, oh. I said I can make them locking wheels. I'm like, I have toy box of wheels.
Throw some casters on that guy. Sure.
Might have to come up with some drop down wheels for later.
Very cool, man.
That'd be pretty cool. But I think it's around that time, gentlemen. We're going to wrap up.
Put a bow on this guy.
That's your damn catchphrase.
Exactly. Us. So, Scott, it's been a great episode, my friend. What's your final words? What would you like to say to everybody?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. I don't do this that often. Like I do FaceTime meetings for work, but not podcasts. So this has been a privilege, and I've enjoyed it. Some of you guys I've been following for years, and I mean the chat group's awesome too. But for me, just enjoy what you do. You're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, but if you're working with wood, whether it's wood and resin or box joints or building, making spoons by hand, whatever you're doing, enjoy it, because that's what you're here for. Have fun with it. Make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn to be better. So that's kind of my philosophy.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
I'll try not to make too many more mistakes there, Scott. But when I do, I'll think of you and I'll still curse myself. But no, those are great words, man. As far as making mistakes, don't be afraid to make them. I think I've literally told my troops that when doing actual work in the Air Force. Probably should follow the same words when I'm in the shop. And also having fun while I'm doing it. It's probably another one I probably should follow a little more because there are times where it feels like a second job. But it's okay. Sometimes it's got to be a job to pay off the really fun, expensive toys you get. But, take care of each other, folks. I think Scott kind of nailed it right on the head. And to be honest, there's not much more to follow other than keep taking care of the community, keep making it stronger, keep helping each other out. Tim.
Yeah, I think you're a pretty humble guy, Scott, and I think that's why you jive with us so well. And staying humble as you go through this whole making adventure that we do, I think is what is going to enable you to learn things a lot faster. Because if you already know everything, you're done learning. You know what I mean? And if you are at that point where you're not sure if you just want to keep on doing this because you're in a funk, like you said before, Scott, it's finding a new perspective. That's something that I preach on a lot. It's just, if you're ever not seeing a way through anything, just find a different perspective. If you're miserable, think about something different, because not everything is as bad as it seems. There's always something better. I know it sounds super cheesy, but you really have to just like turn around once and think about it a different way, and you will come up with something much better.
Well, that don't leave me much because you guys hit on every single thing that I was going to say. So, good job. Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow up, to be honest with you. Scott, man, it's an honor to have you on here. It's been a great pleasure to follow you these number of years and see you grow in the epoxy world and see the stuff you come out with. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, you come up with some amazing stuff. And if you haven't checked out his page, you can do it at Salty Robin Uncut, and that's on Instagram. And you're going to see some pretty amazing, epoxy work, and so just, you got to check it out. You got to see for yourself to understand. Anyway, thank you for listening to episode 192 of the Sawdust Nation podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we have this episode. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting very close to the 200th episode. And with that, hopefully you get in the shop, you go make some sawdust, and Sawdust Nation podcast out. Talking about facing the name Nap, I need you to do who you are real quick.
You do what now?
Spliced it in early.
Who are you?
Your name.
What are you doing here? Who does number 2?
So I can do the intro.
All right, no. And I'm Nap from Nap's Naughty Works LLC.
Bingo. You nailed it.